The turkey wasn't the only thing about to get carved this Thanksgiving. I should have seen it coming when my wife Vanessa started wearing perfume to take out the trash. But hey, I'm just an IT manager who fixes broken networks for a living. What do I know about reading the signs when my own marriage is crashing harder than Windows 95? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Nick, did you pick up the cranberry sauce? Vanessa called from upstairs, her voice carrying that particular edge she'd developed lately. The same tone she used when explaining to her HR team why someone was getting fired. Got it yesterday, I replied, stirring the gravy and wondering when our conversations had devolved into grocery logistics. Along with everything else on your list. Vanessa appeared in the kitchen doorway, looking like she'd stepped out of a magazine. At 36, she still turned heads, especially now that she'd started hitting the gym with religious fervor. Her auburn hair was perfectly styled, makeup flawless despite it being 10 in the morning. Good. My sister Tessa and Greg will be here at 2, along with your brother Alex. She was texting while talking, fingers flying across her phone screen. I want everything perfect. Perfect. That word had become Vanessa's obsession ever since her promotion to HR director. Everything had to be Instagram-worthy, Pinterest-perfect, Facebook-fabulous. Our house looked like a showroom, our social media presence carefully curated, our marriage a performance art piece titled Suburban Success Story. Too bad the starring actress had checked out months ago. Who are you texting? I asked, genuinely curious. It was Thanksgiving morning, but she'd been glued to that phone since she woke up. Work stuff. Carla's having issues with the Peterson account. Carla, her work bestie and enabler, the one who'd been filling Vanessa's head with stories about living your best life and not settling for less than you deserve. I'd met Carla exactly twice and already knew she was the type who'd encourage a friend to burn down her house for the insurance money. On Thanksgiving? Important clients don't take holidays, Nick. She finally looked up from her phone, and I caught something in her expression. Guilt? Annoyance? Hard to tell anymore. Some of us have careers that matter. There it was, the casual knife twist that had become her specialty. I managed networks for a mid-sized tech company, kept their systems running, solved problems that would cripple their operations. But apparently, that didn't matter in the same way as her job firing people and handling sexual harassment complaints. Right. Well, I'll be in the kitchen making sure our unimportant Thanksgiving dinner doesn't burn. She was already back to texting. Thanks, honey. Honey. When had that word started sounding like an insult? I returned to the kitchen, my sanctuary in this house of mirrors. Cooking was one of the few things that still made sense to me. Follow the recipe, apply heat, get predictable results. Unlike marriage, apparently, where following the rules got you a wife who treated you like hired help. The doorbell rang at exactly 2 o'clock. Vanessa had trained our families well. Punctuality was mandatory in her world. I'll get it, I called, wiping my hands on a dish towel. My brother Alex stood on the porch, holding a bottle of wine and wearing an expression I couldn't quite read. At 35, he was still the golden boy of our family, successful gym owner, never married, the one who'd kept his options open while I'd settled down and started a family. Hey, Nick. His usual bear hug felt awkward, distracted. How's it going? Living the dream. Come on in. Behind him, my sister-in-law Tessa and her husband Greg approached from their car. Tessa looked stressed, her usually perfect composure cracked around the edges. Greg, on the other hand, seemed unusually chipper for a man who'd been complaining about his marriage for the past year. Greg was one of those guys who'd peaked in high school and spent the next 20 years trying to recapture that glory. Real estate had been good to him, but success hadn't improved his personality. He still had that smarmy charm that worked on clients, and apparently, based on recent observations, on married women looking for excitement. "Nick, great to see you, buddy." Greg's handshake was too firm, his smile too wide. "Ready for some football?" "Always." I wasn't, but social conventions required the lie. Tessa hugged me, and I noticed she avoided eye contact. "Where are Jamie and Lily?" "Upstairs, probably plotting the downfall of civilization through TikTok videos." My kids were 13 and 10, respectively, old enough to sense the tension that had been building in our house, but young enough to express it through eye rolls and sarcastic comments. Jamie, especially, had inherited my talent for cutting observations. Vanessa descended the stairs like she was making an entrance at a movie premiere. She'd changed into a dress that was just a little too tight, a little too short for a family dinner. The kind of outfit that said, "Look at me," in a language everyone could understand. "Tessa, Greg!" Air kisses all around. "Alex, you look wonderful." Did she hold that hug a little too long? In the old days, I would have dismissed the thought as paranoia. These days, I filed it away with all the other small moments that didn't quite add up. We gathered in the living room, drinks in hand, playing our assigned roles in the happy family tableau. Alex seemed nervous, avoiding Vanessa's gaze. Tessa kept checking her phone. Greg was being unusually attentive to everyone except his wife. And Vanessa? She was performing, bright and animated in a way that felt forced. "So, Alex," Vanessa said, settling onto the couch next to him, "how's the gym business?" "Good, really good. Membership's up, thinking about expanding." He shifted away from her slightly. "How's work treating you?" "Oh, you know how it is. Busy, but I love what I do." She laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a hurricane. "Some days I feel like I could conquer the world." "I'm sure you could," Greg said, and something passed between them. A look, a moment, a shared secret that made Tessa's jaw tighten. I excused myself to check on dinner, but really, I needed a moment to process what I was seeing. In the kitchen, I tried to make sense of the undercurrents flowing through my living room. Alex's nervousness, Greg's inappropriate attention to my wife, Tessa's obvious distress, Vanessa's performance art enthusiasm. And then there was the hospital form I'd found in Vanessa's purse last week, the one that had made my blood run cold and my world tilt sideways. "Dad?" Jamie appeared in the kitchen, looking older than her 13 years. "Everything okay? You look like you're about to throw up." "Just nervous about the turkey. First time doing the whole dinner myself." She raised an eyebrow, a gesture she'd inherited from me. "Mom's being weird." "Weird how?" "Weirder than usual. Like she's trying too hard to be happy. And Uncle Alex looks like he wants to jump out a window." "Smart kid. Too smart, maybe." "It's just family stress. Holidays make everyone crazy." "If you say so." She grabbed a dinner roll from the basket. "But for the record, I think something's up." Out of the mouths of babes. I returned to the living room as Vanessa was telling a story about her latest triumph at work, something about restructuring a department and saving the company thousands. Greg was hanging on every word like she was delivering the Gettysburg Address. "You're amazing," he said when she finished. "Tessa, you never tell stories like that about your job." Tessa worked part-time at a non-profit. She'd scaled back her career to focus on their kids, a decision Greg had supported until recently. Now, apparently, it was a source of embarrassment. "I help coordinate food drives," Tessa said quietly. "Not exactly boardroom drama." "Still important work," I said, because someone needed to. "Of course it is," Vanessa agreed, but her tone suggested otherwise. "We all contribute in our own ways." The condescension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Dinner was ready, and we moved to the dining room. I'd outdone myself. Turkey perfectly golden, sides that would make Food Network proud, everything arranged with the kind of attention to detail that comes from having nothing else to focus on. "This looks incredible, Nick," Alex said, and for a moment, he sounded like my brother again, instead of a stranger wearing his face. Thanks. I had time to really focus on it this year. Because your job is so flexible, Vanessa added, and there was that knife twist again. Must be nice to have such a manageable workload. I was about to respond when my phone buzzed. A text from my daughter, who was sitting right across from me. "Mom's being a bitch, you okay?" I looked up to find Jamie watching me with concern. I nodded slightly and deleted the message. The conversation flowed around the table, touching on safe topics, weather, sports, local news. But underneath the pleasantries, tension crackled like electricity before a storm. Greg kept finding excuses to compliment Vanessa. Alex kept drinking. Tessa kept checking her phone. And Vanessa? She was glowing with an energy that had nothing to do with holiday spirit. "So," Greg said, as we finished the main course, "any big news to share? New Year's resolutions? Exciting plans?" He was looking at Vanessa when he said it, and something in his expression made my stomach drop. Vanessa smiled, the kind of smile that preceded explosions. "Funny you should ask." She reached into her purse and pulled out a folded paper, the hospital form, the one that had been haunting my thoughts for a week. "I have some news," she announced, unfolding the paper with theatrical precision. "I'm pregnant." The silence that followed was deafening. Alex went pale. Tessa dropped her fork. Greg's smile faltered for just a moment before returning full force. "Congratulations," he said, too loud, too enthusiastic. "That's wonderful news." "Yes," Vanessa said, her eyes fixed on me. "It's Alex's." The world stopped. Alex choked on his wine. "What?" "The baby," Vanessa continued, her voice steady as a surgeon's scalpel. "It's Alex's. We've been seeing each other. I'm sorry, Nick, but I can't pretend anymore." I stared at her, my mind struggling to process what she'd just said. She was claiming the baby was my brother's. My brother, who was sitting there looking like he'd been struck by lightning. And then I remembered something. Something important. I started to laugh. "Nick?" Vanessa's confidence wavered. "Did you hear what I said?" "Oh, I heard you." I wiped tears from my eyes. "That's hilarious. Really, truly hilarious." "I don't understand." "Alex," I said, turning to my brother, "remind everyone when you had your vasectomy." Alex blinked, confusion replacing panic. "My... what?" "Your vasectomy. The one you got 5 years ago after that pregnancy scare with your ex-girlfriend. The one you told me about because you were worried about complications. The one you've mentioned at least a dozen family gatherings since then." The color drained from Vanessa's face. 5 years ago," Alex said slowly, understanding dawning. "I got snipped 5 years ago." I turned back to my wife, who was now staring at the table like it might swallow her whole. "So, Vanessa," I said, my voice calm as a lake before a storm, "if the baby isn't mine, and it sure as hell isn't Alex's, who's the real father?" The silence stretched like a rubber band about to snap, and then Tessa spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Greg." The word hung in the air like smoke from a house fire. Greg's face went through a fascinating series of expressions: surprise, denial, panic, and finally, resignation. Tessa was staring at her husband with the kind of look that could melt steel. Alex was pouring himself another very large glass of wine. And Vanessa? Vanessa looked like she'd just realized she'd brought a knife to a gunfight. "Tessa, what are you—" Greg started. "Don't!" Tessa's voice cut through his protest like a blade. "Just don't. I've known for weeks, the late meetings, the new cologne, the way you've been picking fights with me so you could storm out and go to her." She turned to Vanessa, and I saw 20 years of friendship crumbling in real time. "My sister, my own sister." Tessa's voice broke. "How could you?" "It's not what you think," Vanessa began, but Jamie, my 13-year-old daughter, chose that moment to make her entrance. "Hey, Mom, your phone was buzzing upstairs, so I brought it down." She handed Vanessa her phone with the innocent helpfulness of a child who had no idea she'd just lit the fuse. "You got a bunch of texts from Greg. Want me to read them?" "No." Vanessa snatched the phone, but it was too late. Jamie had already seen enough. "Oh, weird," Jamie said with the devastating honesty only teenagers can deliver. "Why is Mr. Gregg texting you about missing you and can't wait to— Jamie, go upstairs." I said it quietly, but she heard the steel underneath. "But Dad—" "Now." She left, but not before shooting a look at her mother that could have frozen lava. Smart kid. She'd figured out more than any of us had given her credit for. The adults sat in the wreckage of what had been, 30 seconds earlier, a family dinner. The turkey sat cooling on its platter, a monument to normalcy in a room that had just exploded. "How long?" I asked. My voice sounded strange, like it was coming from someone else. Vanessa was crying now, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of frustration, the kind you cry when your carefully laid plans fall apart. "Nick, I can explain." "How long?" 6 months, Greg answered when Vanessa couldn't. He'd given up pretending, and there was almost relief in his voice. "It started 6 months ago." 6 months. I did the math. Right around the time Vanessa had started her new exercise routine. Right around the time she'd begun working late and taking weekend business trips. Right around the time she'd started treating me like an inconvenience instead of a husband. "The baby's due in May," I said, more to myself than anyone else. "So you got pregnant in August." "Nick, August, when you told me you were going to that HR conference in Chicago, the one that got extended to 4 days because of networking opportunities." Vanessa's silence was confirmation enough. I turned to Greg, who was now sweating despite the November chill. "Where's your wedding ring, buddy?" He looked down at his hand like he'd never seen it before. His ring finger was tan except for a pale band where his wedding ring usually sat. I took it off to help Nick move furniture earlier," he stammered. "I didn't ask you to move any furniture." Tessa laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "He's been taking it off for months. I found it in his gym bag last week, along with condoms. We haven't used condoms in 15 years. The hits kept coming. Each revelation was another nail in the coffin of the life I thought I'd been living. "So let me get this straight," I said, standing up from the table. "My wife has been sleeping with my sister-in-law's husband for 6 months. She's pregnant with his baby, and her brilliant plan was to pin it on my vasectomized brother." "It wasn't supposed to happen like this," Vanessa said, and for the first time, she sounded like the woman I'd married instead of the stranger she'd become. "How was it supposed to happen?" She looked at Greg, who nodded like he was giving her permission to continue. That small gesture told me everything I needed to know about how deep this went. "We were going to tell you after the holidays. Both of you. We were going to ask for divorces and start over. Together." "Yes." I felt something inside me break. Not my heart. That had been cracking for months. Something deeper. The part of me that had believed in fairness, in honesty, in the idea that people you loved wouldn't systematically destroy your life while smiling to your face. "And the baby?" "We were going to say it was yours, from before we separated. Even though we haven't had sex in 3 months. Vanessa flinched. "People would have believed it." "People." I looked around the table. "You mean our families, our friends, our children." "The children would have adjusted." "Our children, Vanessa, Jamie and Lily. You were going to lie to our daughters about their siblings' parentage so you could run off with Greg and play house." "It's not like that." "What's it like then?" She stood up and I saw the woman she'd become. Harder than the girl I'd married, more calculating. Success had changed her, or maybe it had just revealed who she'd always been underneath. It's like I fell in love with someone who actually appreciates me. Someone who sees my potential instead of just accepting mediocrity. The insult landed like she'd intended. Mediocrity. That's what our marriage had become in her eyes. That's what I had become. Greg appreciates you, I said. Is that what we're calling it? He supports my ambitions. He doesn't make me feel guilty for wanting more than this. She gestured around our dining room, at the life we'd built together. More than suburban soccer mom bullshit and potluck dinners. This suburban bullshit includes your daughters. They'll understand when they're older. Will they? I turned to the staircase, where I could see shadows moving. Jamie and Lily were listening from upstairs, hearing their mother dismiss their lives as something to be escaped from. Tessa finally spoke again. What about our kids, Greg? What about Emma and Michael? Greg had the decency to look ashamed. They'll be okay. Kids are resilient. Resilient. Tessa repeated the word like it tasted bitter. Is that what you're going to tell them when you explain why Daddy moved in with Aunt Vanessa? The full scope of the betrayal was becoming clear. This wasn't just an affair, it was a demolition project. 2 families destroyed so 2 selfish people could chase whatever they thought they were missing. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Check the neighborhood Facebook group. You're going to want to see this. I opened the app and felt my stomach drop. There, in the Maple Grove community group, was a post from Mindy Patterson, our neighbor 3 houses down. Mindy was the unofficial neighborhood gossip coordinator, the woman who turned every minor incident into social media content. The post was time-stamped 20 minutes ago. Thanksgiving drama at the Ellison house. Police might be needed. Shouting, crying, looks like a real mess. Anyone know what's happening? Below it, a comment from Carla, Vanessa's work friend and enabler. Vanessa texted me. She's finally telling Nick the truth. About time she got out of that marriage. Another comment, this one from someone I didn't recognize. Isn't that the house with the IT guy and the HR lady? She's way out of his league anyway. And then, the comment that made my blood boil, from Greg's business partner. Greg's been talking about leaving Tessa for months. Good for him for finally making a move. They'd been discussing our lives, our marriages, our children's futures like it was entertainment. Like we were characters in their personal soap opera. I held up my phone. You want to know the best part? Your friends have been live tweeting our marriage's destruction. Vanessa grabbed for the phone, but I pulled it back. Carla's been posting updates. Apparently you've been telling everyone about your marriage for months. Nick, I never... Greg's business partner says he's been talking about leaving Tessa since summer. Tessa made a sound like she'd been punched. Since summer? Greg, you've been planning this since summer? It wasn't like that. What was it like? I was genuinely curious now. Help me understand the timeline. When did you decide our families were disposable? Alex, who'd been silent through most of this, finally spoke. Jesus Christ, Vanessa. I thought you were just having a midlife crisis. I never thought you'd actually blow up everything. You don't understand, she said. None of you understand what it's like to feel trapped, to feel like you're wasting your life. Trapped. I repeated the word. In a marriage where you had complete freedom to pursue your career, in a house we bought together, raising children we both wanted. You make it sound so simple. It was simple. We were happy, or I thought we were. You were happy. You were content with your little IT job and your weekend projects and your predictable life. I wanted more. More what? More money? We're comfortable? More excitement? We traveled? More respect? I've supported every career move you've made. More passion. And there it was. The real reason. Not money, not career ambitions, not incompatibility. She'd gotten bored and decided that justified burning down 2 families. Passion, I said, with Greg. She looked at him, and I saw it. The look that used to be mine, the look that said he was her whole world, her great adventure, her escape from the mundane reality of marriage and parenthood. Yes. And the baby? We'll grow up in a house full of love instead of quiet resentment. Quiet resentment. Is that what you think this is? Isn't it? I looked around the table. At Tessa, crying silently into her napkin. At Alex, staring into his wine glass like it held answers. At Greg, who couldn't meet anyone's eyes. At Vanessa, defiant and beautiful and utterly convinced she was the heroine of this story. No, I said. This is loud resentment. I walked to the front window and looked out at our neighborhood. Porch lights were coming on as the afternoon faded into evening. Normal families were finishing their normal Thanksgiving dinners, probably arguing about football or politics, or whether to break out the Christmas decorations early. Our neighbors were living their lives, while ours became public entertainment. I could see Mindy Patterson's house from our window. Her living room light was on, and I could make out figures gathered around what was probably her computer, refreshing social media feeds for updates on the Ellison family implosion. You know what the worst part is? I said, still looking out the window. No one answered. It's not that you cheated. It's not even that you got pregnant. It's that you turned our marriage into a joke for other people's entertainment. I turned back to face them. You've been telling everyone who'd listen that I'm not good enough for you, that our life together is something to be escaped from, that our children are obstacles to your happiness. That's not. Carla's post says you've been complaining about our marriage for months. Greg's business partner says he's been talking about leaving Tessa since summer. You think this is the first time I've heard whispers at the grocery store, seen the looks at school events? Vanessa had the grace to look ashamed, finally. You didn't just cheat on me. You humiliated me. You made me the last person in town to know my own marriage was over. My phone buzzed again. Another Facebook notification. This time, it was a comment from someone in my own extended family. Always knew she was too good for him. I showed the screen to Vanessa. Congratulations. Even my cousins think you're upgrading. The fight went out of her then. She sat down heavily, looking older than her 36 years. I'm sorry, she said, and for the first time, it sounded genuine. I never wanted it to happen like this. How did you want it to happen? Quietly, privately, with dignity. There's no dignified way to abandon your family for your sister's husband. Tessa stood up abruptly. I can't do this anymore. I can't sit here and listen to you two dissect your affair like it's a business transaction. She turned to Greg. I want you out of the house tonight. Tessa. Tonight. I don't care where you go. Stay with your girlfriend. Stay with your mother. Sleep in your car. But you're not sleeping in our bed ever again. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. Where are you going? Greg called after her. To pick up our children from my mother's house. To figure out how to explain to Emma and Michael why their father chose Aunt Vanessa over their family. The door slammed behind her with a finality that echoed through the house. Greg stood up, looking lost. I should go after her. Should you? I asked. Or should you stay here with your pregnant girlfriend and figure out your next move? He looked between me and Vanessa, like he was seeing the situation clearly for the first time. This is fucked up, he said finally. Yes, it is. I never meant for it to get this complicated. What did you think was going to happen? You were going to ride off into the sunset and leave 4 kids and 2 spouses behind without consequences? I thought we could handle it like adults. Adults, I repeated. Adults don't lie to their families for 6 months. Adults don't plan elaborate deception campaigns. Adults don't turn their neighborhoods into gossip mills. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Jamie. Dad, are you okay? Mom's crying and Uncle Alex looks drunk. I looked up the stairs and saw my daughter's face peeking through the banister rails. Come down, sweetheart. Jamie descended slowly, followed by 10-year-old Lily, who looked confused and scared. Are you and Mom getting divorced? Jamie asked, with the direct honesty that only children possess. I looked at Vanessa, who was staring at our daughters like she was seeing them for the first time. Yes, I said. We are. Because of the baby? Because your mother has decided she wants a different life? Lily started crying. Where will we live? You'll live here with me. Your mother we'll figure that out. Vanessa finally found her voice. Girls, this doesn't change how much I love you. Yes, it does, Jamie said, and the coldness in her voice was startling. If you loved us, you wouldn't be having a baby with Uncle Greg. Jamie, I'm not stupid, Mom. I can do math. And I can read text messages. Vanessa looked stricken. What text messages? The ones that came through on the iPad upstairs. The one that's linked to your phone. The ones where you and Mr. Greg talk about leaving Dad and Aunt Tessa and starting over somewhere new. The room went silent, except for Lily's quiet sobbing. You read my private messages? They popped up on the screen. I couldn't help seeing them. I felt something cold settle in my chest. What did the messages say, Jamie? She looked at me, then at her mother, then back at me. They said they were going to wait until after Christmas to tell everyone, and that they already found a house in Portland, and that Mom was going to ask for full custody because Dad's job doesn't pay enough to support us properly. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. Full custody, I said. Vanessa wouldn't meet my eyes. You were going to try to take my daughters. Nick, you were going to move to Portland with Greg and try to convince a judge that I'm an unfit father because I don't make as much money as your boyfriend. That's not... What else, Jamie? What else did the messages say? My daughter looked scared, but she answered. They said they were going to use the money from selling both houses to buy a bigger one, and that Aunt Tessa would probably move back in with Grandma Rose, so it would all work out. I stared at my wife, my soon-to-be ex-wife, with something approaching awe. You had it all figured out. New city, new house, new family, and you were going to finance it by forcing the sale of the homes Tessa and I have been paying for. It's more complicated than that. Is it? Because it sounds like you and Greg planned to destroy 2 families, take 4 children away from their fathers, liquidate our assets, and start fresh somewhere else. We just wanted a chance to be happy, at the cost of everyone else's happiness. My phone rang. The caller ID showed Tessa's name. Nick? Her voice was shaky. I'm at my mother's with the kids. Greg's been calling nonstop. I told him if he comes here, I'm calling the police. Are you okay? No, but I will be. Listen, I need to ask you something. What? Did you know? About the Portland house? My blood went cold. What Portland house? The one Greg put an offer on last month. I found the paperwork in his office when I went home to pack his things. I looked at Vanessa, who had gone pale. No, I didn't know. They've been planning this for a while, Nick. This wasn't some spontaneous thing. They've been preparing to leave us for months. I'm starting to figure that out. I'm going to destroy him, Tessa said, and the venom in her voice was startling. I'm going to take everything. The house, the business, the kids. He's not going to have a pot to piss in when I'm done. Tessa, he thinks he can just walk away from 15 years of marriage like it never happened? He thinks he can abandon his children for your wife and face no consequences? What are you going to do? I'm calling my lawyer first thing tomorrow, and then I'm calling his business partners, and then I'm calling every client he's ever had. That might not be... He destroyed my family, Nick. He destroyed our children's sense of security. He made me look like a fool in front of everyone we know. I understood her rage. I was feeling it too. I know. I want him to lose everything, and I want everyone to know why. After I hung up, I looked around the room. Alex was passed out in his chair, the wine finally claiming him. Greg was staring at his phone like it might provide answers. Vanessa was holding our daughters, who were tolerating her embrace but not returning it. So, I said. Portland. Vanessa looked up. Nick, did you already put in your transfer request at work? Her silence was answer enough. When were you planning to tell me? Christmas morning? New Year's Eve? Or were you just going to disappear one day and leave divorce papers on the kitchen table? We were going to do it right. Right. By whose definition? She didn't have an answer. I walked to the front closet and pulled out Greg's coat. Time to go, buddy. Greg looked up from his phone. What? You're leaving. Now. Nick, we should talk about this. We just did. For 2 hours. You're leaving my house and you're not coming back. Where am I supposed to go? I don't care. Figure it out. I held out his coat. He took it reluctantly. What about Vanessa? I looked at my wife, who was watching this exchange with something like panic in her eyes. What about her? She's pregnant. With my baby. Then I guess you better figure out how to support her. Greg stood up, finally understanding that his welcome had been permanently revoked. This isn't over, Nick. Yes, it is. He walked to the door, then turned back. For what it's worth, I'm sorry it happened this way. No, you're not. You're sorry you got caught. He left without another word. I turned to Vanessa, who was still sitting with our daughters. Girls, go upstairs. Your mother and I need to finish talking. They left reluctantly, Jamie shooting one last protective look in my direction. When we were alone, Vanessa finally broke down completely. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt the girls. But you did. I know. You destroyed their family. I know. You made them choose sides. I know. I sat down across from her, suddenly exhausted. Why, Vanessa? We weren't perfect, but we were good. We were happy. I thought I was happy. But then I met Greg, and I realized what I was missing. What were you missing? Excitement, passion, the feeling that someone thought I was amazing. I thought you were amazing. No, you thought I was comfortable. There's a difference. Maybe she was right. Maybe I had gotten comfortable. Maybe I'd stopped seeing her as the incredible woman I'd married and started seeing her as just my wife, the mother of my children, the person who shared my mortgage and my bed. But comfort wasn't a crime. Stability wasn't a failure. Building a life together wasn't settling. So what happens now? I asked. I don't know. Are you moving to Portland? I don't know. Are you keeping the baby? Yes. Are you staying with Greg? She was quiet for a long moment. I think so. Yes. Then you need to leave. Nick, tonight. You need to leave tonight. Where will I go? I don't care. Go to Greg's, go to Carla's, go to a hotel. But you can't stay here. What about the girls? What about them? When will I see them? When you figure out how to explain to them why you chose another man's baby over their family. She started crying again, but I was out of sympathy. I'll pack a bag, she said finally. Good. She stood up, then turned back. I did love you, Nick. I still do. No, you don't. You love the idea of me as a safety net. You love knowing I'll be here to pick up the pieces when your great adventure falls apart. That's not true, isn't it? You kept me in the dark for 6 months while you planned your escape. You were going to steal my children and my assets to finance your new life. You turned our marriage into a punchline for your friends' entertainment. I made mistakes. You made choices. Every day for 6 months, you chose to lie to me. You chose to humiliate me. You chose to destroy our family. I know. So don't tell me you love me. Love doesn't do what you did. She went upstairs to pack, and I was left alone in the wreckage of our Thanksgiving dinner. The turkey sat cold on its platter, surrounded by sides that no one had finished eating. The wine glasses held the dregs of conversations that had ended in destruction. My phone buzzed with another Facebook notification. The Maple Grove community group was having a field day with our family drama. 37 comments and counting, dissecting our marriage, taking sides, offering unsolicited advice. I turned off the phone and walked to the kitchen window. Outside, the neighborhood looked peaceful. Porch lights glowed warmly, windows showed glimpses of normal families finishing their normal holiday dinners. But inside our house, everything had changed forever. Upstairs, I could hear Vanessa moving around, packing her things. In a few minutes, she'd walk out that door, and my marriage would officially be over. Tomorrow, I'd have to figure out how to explain to my daughters why their mother chose to leave us. I'd have to call a lawyer and start the divorce proceedings. I'd have to deal with the neighborhood gossips and the social media speculation and the awkward encounters at the grocery store. But tonight, I was going to clean up the dinner dishes and pretend that normal still existed. Because sometimes, that's all you can do when your world explodes. You clean up the mess and try to remember who you were before everything fell apart. 3 weeks later, I learned that betrayal was like a virus. It kept mutating into new and more virulent forms. I was sitting in my lawyer's office, a cramped space above a sandwich shop that smelled like pastrami and broken dreams, when Jennifer Martinez slid a manila folder across her desk. "This is what your wife's attorney filed yesterday," she said, her expression grim. "You're going to want to sit down." I was already sitting, but I understood her meaning when I opened the folder. Vanessa wasn't just asking for a divorce. She was asking for full custody of Jamie and Lily, alimony, half of everything we owned, and, this was the part that made my vision blur, she was claiming I was an unfit father due to anger management issues and financial instability. Anger management issues? I looked up at Jennifer, who'd been practicing family law for 15 years and had the weary expression of someone who'd seen every possible variation of human selfishness. "She's claiming you threatened her and Greg during the Thanksgiving incident. Says you were verbally abusive and created an unsafe environment for the children." "I never threatened anyone." "She also says you've been drinking heavily since the separation and that you've made inappropriate comments about her pregnancy." I stared at the legal documents, trying to process the words. In the 3 weeks since Vanessa had moved out, I'd been focused on keeping my daughters' lives as normal as possible. Jamie was seeing a counselor to deal with her anger about the situation. Lily was having nightmares. I'd been working from home more often, making sure they felt secure and loved. And apparently, my wife had been building a legal case to paint me as an abusive drunk. "There's more," Jennifer said. "She's requesting that your visitation be supervised until you complete anger management classes and substance abuse counseling. Supervised visitation, for my own children. It gets worse." I wasn't sure how it could get worse, but Jennifer had another folder. "Greg's divorce from Tessa is proceeding as expected. She's taking him to the cleaners, as promised. But here's the interesting part. Vanessa and Greg have applied for a marriage license. They're getting married? As soon as both divorces are final, and they've put an offer on a house in Portland, just like your daughter overheard." The pieces were falling into place with sickening clarity. "She's trying to establish that I'm unfit so she can move to Portland with my kids." "That's my assessment, yes." I felt something cold and hard settle in my chest. For 3 weeks, I'd been playing defense, trying to minimize the damage, protect my daughters, take the high road. I'd been operating under the assumption that despite everything, Vanessa still had some shred of decency when it came to our children. I'd been wrong. What are my options? We fight it. But I have to warn you, Nick, family court can be unpredictable. Judges tend to favor mothers, especially when they make accusations like these. Even when the accusations are false. Truth and perception aren't always the same thing in family court. I walked out of Jennifer's office feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. The December air was sharp and cold, matching my mood perfectly. Christmas decorations lined Main Street, cheerful and bright, a mockery of my current reality. My phone rang as I reached my car. The caller ID showed my brother's name. "Hey, Alex." "Nick, we need to talk. Can you meet me at Murphy's?" Murphy's was a dive bar 3 blocks from my house, the kind of place where nobody asked questions and everybody minded their own business. "It's 2 in the afternoon. Trust me, you're going to want a drink for this conversation." 20 minutes later, I was nursing a beer while Alex fidgeted with a whiskey he hadn't touched. "I fucked up," he said without preamble. "How?" "Vanessa came to see me last week, at the gym." I felt my stomach drop. "What did she want?" "She wanted me to back up her story about you having anger problems." "And?" "I told her to go to hell." Some of the tension left my shoulders. Good. But that's not the fucked up part. Alex finally took a sip of his whiskey. "She offered me money, Nick. $10,000 to testify that you'd been drinking heavily and that you'd made threats." Jesus Christ. "She said it would be better for everyone if the girls lived with her and Greg in Portland. Fresh start, better schools, more opportunities." I stared at my brother, trying to process what he was telling me. "She tried to bribe you to lie in court." "Yes." "Did you record the conversation?" "No. I should have, but I was too shocked to think straight." "Would you testify about what she said?" Alex looked uncomfortable. "That's the thing, Nick. She's claiming I made sexual advances toward her at Thanksgiving. Says that's why I was acting weird that day." The hits just kept coming. Sexual advances. She's saying I was drunk and inappropriate, and that when she rejected me, I got angry and started talking about how you deserved better. That's insane. Is it? Think about it from her perspective. I'm the only family member who was there that day who might testify on your behalf. If she can discredit me, make me look like a jealous drunk who hit on his brother's wife, then my testimony becomes worthless. I finished my beer and immediately ordered another. She's thought of everything. It looks that way. We sat in silence for a while, two brothers contemplating the wreckage of our family. "There's something else," Alex said finally. "What now?" "I hired a private investigator." I looked up sharply. "You what?" "After Vanessa tried to bribe me, I got suspicious. I wanted to know what else she might be hiding." "Alex? The investigator's name is Sarah Chen. She's good, Nick, really good. And she found some interesting things." He pulled out a manila envelope. Apparently, they were the preferred delivery method for life-changing information. Greg's been married before, twice. Both marriages ended in divorce, both times because he was cheating. That's not exactly surprising. His first wife filed a restraining order, says he stalked her after she left him. That was more interesting. His second wife? She moved to Florida to get away from him, changed her name. I opened the envelope and found a thick stack of documents. Police reports, court filings, financial records. There's more. Greg's real estate business is in trouble, has been for months. He's been using client escrow funds to cover his personal expenses. That's embezzlement. Yes, it is. And if Tessa's lawyer finds out about it during the divorce proceedings, Greg could be looking at criminal charges. I flipped through the documents, my mind racing. Does Vanessa know about any of this? Hard to say. But here's the thing. If Greg goes to prison, she's going to be a single mother with a baby and no income. Unless she has my alimony payments and child support. Exactly. The picture was becoming clearer, and it was uglier than I'd imagined. Vanessa hadn't just fallen in love with Greg. She'd hitched her wagon to a man who was facing financial ruin and possible criminal charges. Her only way out was to secure my money through the divorce settlement. There's one more thing, Alex said. The investigator found evidence that Greg's been physically abusive with previous girlfriends. Nothing that resulted in charges but a pattern of behavior. Vanessa's pregnant with his baby. I know. She has no idea what she's gotten herself into. Probably not. I stared at the documents, feeling a mixture of vindication and dread. This information could help me in the custody battle, but it also meant my daughter's half-sibling was going to be born into a potentially dangerous situation. What do you want to do with this? Alex asked. I don't know yet, but I'm going to start by calling Tessa. Tessa answered on the first ring, like she'd been waiting for my call. Nick, please tell me you have good news, because I've had a shit day. What happened? Greg cleaned out our joint checking account, Took everything except $50. My lawyer says there's not much we can do until the divorce is final. Actually, there might be something we can do. I told her about the investigator's findings, about Greg's history of abuse, about the embezzlement, about the previous marriages. The silence on the other end of the line stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Tessa? I'm here, I'm just processing. Are you okay? I'm married to a criminal who's been stealing money and might be violent, and he's having a baby with my sister. No, Nick, I'm not okay. What do you want to do? I want to destroy him. Even if it means Vanessa gets hurt too? Another long pause. She made her choice, Nick. She chose him over her family, over her children, over you. If she gets hurt in the crossfire, that's on her. I understood her anger. I was feeling it too. But the thought of my daughter's half-sibling being born into chaos made me hesitate. Let me think about this, I said. Don't think too long. My lawyer wants to file an emergency motion to freeze all of Greg's assets. If we're going to use this information, we need to do it soon. After I hung up, I sat in Murphy's for another hour, drinking beer and trying to figure out my next move. The evidence Alex had gathered could change everything, but using it felt like dropping a nuclear bomb on an already devastated landscape. My phone buzzed with a text from Jamie. Dad, when are you coming home? Lily's crying again. I paid my tab and drove home, where I found my 10-year-old daughter curled up on the couch, tears streaming down her face. What's wrong, sweetheart? Mom called, Jamie said from the kitchen, where she was making hot chocolate. She wanted to talk to us about Christmas. I sat down next to Lily and pulled her into my lap. What did she say? She wants us to come to Portland for Christmas, Lily whispered. To see the new house. My blood went cold. She wants you to visit Portland? She said we could see where we might live if the judge says it's okay. The manipulation was breathtaking. Vanessa was using Christmas, the most emotionally charged holiday for children, to plant the idea that moving to Portland was inevitable. What did you tell her? I told her I don't want to move, Lily said. I want to stay here with you. And what did she say? She said, sometimes kids don't get to choose, but that I'd understand when I'm older. Jamie appeared with 2 mugs of hot chocolate, her expression dark. She also said Greg's going to adopt us after they get married, so we'll be a real family. The audacity was staggering. Vanessa was trying to replace me as their father, while simultaneously painting me as unfit in court. Girls, listen to me. No one is adopting you. No one is replacing me as your father, and you're not moving to Portland unless you want to. Promise? Lily asked. Promise. But even as I said it, I knew I might not be able to keep that promise. Family court was unpredictable, and Vanessa was playing dirty. If I didn't fight back with equal ruthlessness, I could lose my daughters forever. That night, after the girls were asleep, I called Sarah Chen, the private investigator. Mr. Ellison, I was wondering when I'd hear from you. I need more information. What kind of information? I need to know everything about Greg's finances, every account, every debt, every questionable transaction. That's going to take some time. I also need to know about Vanessa's activities since she moved out, where she's living, who she's seeing, what she's doing. Are you sure you want to go down this road? Once you start digging into someone's life like this, there's no going back. I thought about Lily's tears, about Jamie's anger, about Vanessa's plan to take my children away and replace me with a man who might be dangerous. I'm sure. It's going to be expensive. I don't care. And it might get ugly. It's already ugly. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Okay, I'll start tomorrow. But Mr. Ellison, be prepared for what we might find. Sometimes the truth is worse than the lies. After I hung up, I walked through my house, the house Vanessa wanted to force me to sell, the house my daughters called home. In the living room, evidence of their lives was everywhere. Lily's art projects on the refrigerator, Jamie's soccer trophies on the mantel, family photos that would need to be edited now. 3 weeks ago, I'd been a married man with a normal suburban life. Now I was a single father preparing for war with a woman who'd once promised to love me forever. The transformation was complete. The man who'd tried to take the high road, who'd wanted to minimize damage and protect everyone's feelings, was gone. In his place was someone harder, angrier, and absolutely determined to win. Because sometimes taking the high road just gets you run over by people who are willing to fight dirty. And I was done being roadkill. The first shot in the real war came on a Tuesday morning in January, delivered by a sheriff's deputy who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Nicholas Ellison." "That's me. You're being served with a restraining order." I took the papers with hands that shook slightly, not from fear, but from rage so pure it felt like electricity in my veins. According to the documents, I had made threatening phone calls to Vanessa, harassed Greg at his workplace, and created a climate of fear that endangered both her and their unborn child. The order prohibited me from contacting Vanessa directly, coming within 500 feet of her residence, or communicating with her except through lawyers. It was a masterpiece of legal manipulation, designed to make me look dangerous while preventing me from defending myself. What it actually did was remove the last restraint on my conscience. I called Sarah Chen immediately. They just served me with a restraining order. Based on what? Lies. Complete fabrications. I read her the specifics. "This is actually good news," Sarah said. "How is this good news?" "Because now we know how desperate they are. People don't file false restraining orders unless they're terrified of what you might discover." "What have you discovered?" "More than you probably want to know. Can you meet me at my office in an hour?" Sarah's office was in a converted warehouse downtown, a maze of cubicles and computer equipment that looked like the nerve center of a small intelligence operation, which, I supposed, it was. She led me to a conference room where she'd laid out what looked like the contents of someone's entire life spread across 3 tables. "Greg Morrison is a very interesting man," she began. "Born Gregory Morimoto in Sacramento. Changed his name when he was 22, right after his first arrest for fraud." She handed me a police report from 1998. Credit card scam. Charges were dropped when he made restitution, but it established a pattern. What kind of pattern? The kind where he finds women with money, charms them, gains access to their finances, and then disappears when things get complicated. She showed me a timeline she'd constructed, covering Greg's last 15 years. 3 marriages, multiple long-term relationships, a trail of financial destruction and broken hearts. His first wife, Michelle, was a nurse. He convinced her to take out a home equity loan to fund his real estate investment business. When the business failed, he divorced her and left her with the debt. How much debt? $80,000. She had to declare bankruptcy. And the second wife? Amanda. She owned a small marketing firm. Greg became her business partner, then systematically embezzled from client accounts. When she discovered what he was doing, he claimed she was mentally unstable and tried to have her committed. The documents painted a picture of a man who was not just a cheater, but a predator who targeted successful women and destroyed their lives for profit. What about the restraining order his first wife filed? Sarah pulled out another thick folder. That's where it gets really interesting. After Michelle divorced him, Greg started a campaign of harassment that lasted 2 years. He broke into her house, slashed her tires, sent her threatening letters, followed her to work. Jesus. It gets worse. When she started dating someone new, Greg broke the guy's windshield and spray-painted "whore" on Michelle's garage door. And he was never arrested? He was smart about it. Never did anything that could be definitively traced back to him. And when Michelle finally got the restraining order, he moved to Oregon and started over with Amanda. I stared at the timeline, seeing the pattern clearly now. He's going to do the same thing to Vanessa, Probably, but right now she's useful to him. She has a good job, a stable income, and access to your assets through the divorce settlement. Until he doesn't need her anymore. Exactly. Sarah moved to the next table, which was covered with financial documents. Now, about his current business practices. Greg's been running what's essentially a Ponzi scheme with his real estate clients. She showed me bank records, transaction histories, client contracts. He takes money from new clients to cover shortfalls from previous deals. It's been working because the market's been good, but it's not sustainable. How much money are we talking about? Conservative estimate? He's stolen about $200,000 from client escrow accounts over the past 18 months. And Tessa doesn't know? She's starting to figure it out. Her lawyer filed a motion yesterday to freeze all of Greg's business accounts. What happens when the clients find out their money is gone? Criminal charges, multiple felonies. He's looking at 5 to 10 years in prison. I sat back in my chair trying to process the scope of what Sarah had uncovered. There's more, she said, moving to the third table. I've been monitoring Vanessa's activities since she moved out. This felt like crossing a line, but I needed to know. She's been staying at Greg's house, as expected, but she's also been meeting with a man named David Kellerman. Who's David Kellerman? A private investigator, the same one who helped Greg build his case against his second wife. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. They're building a case against me. More than that. Kellerman specializes in what he calls reputation management. He manufactures evidence of abuse, addiction, mental instability, whatever his clients need to win custody battles. What kind of evidence? Sarah pulled out a folder I hadn't noticed before. Fake medical records showing you've been treated for anger management issues, doctored photos that make it look like you've been drinking heavily, witness statements from people who claim to have seen you behaving erratically. None of that is true. Of course it's not true. But it looks convincing, and in family court, perception often matters more than reality. I felt like I was drowning in the scope of the conspiracy against me. How do we fight this? We don't fight it. We destroy it. Sarah's expression was grim but determined. Everything they're doing is illegal. The fake evidence, the false restraining order, the witness tampering, it's all criminal activity. So we call the police? We could, but that would take months to investigate, and by then, Vanessa could be in Portland with your daughters. Then what do? We expose them, publicly, completely. We make their crimes so visible that no judge would dare rule in their favor. How? Sarah smiled for the first time since I'd arrived. We give them enough rope to hang themselves, and then we make sure everyone's watching when they do it. Over the next hour, Sarah outlined a plan that was both brilliant and ruthless. We would let Greg and Vanessa continue building their case against me, while secretly documenting every illegal thing they did. When we had enough evidence, we would release it all at once, to the police, to the press, to social media, to anyone who would listen. The key is timing, Sarah explained. We need to wait until they've committed so many crimes that there's no way to explain them away. What if they succeed in taking my daughters before then? They won't. Trust me. I wanted to trust her, but the stakes were too high. I need insurance, I said. What kind of insurance? I need something I can use immediately if things go wrong. Sarah considered this for a moment. There is one thing, but it's risky. What is it? Greg's been using his real estate license to launder money for some very unpleasant people, drug dealers mostly, small-time operations but still federal crimes. How do you know this? I have contacts in law enforcement. Greg's been on their radar for months. Can we use that? If we had to, yes, but it would mean bringing down a lot of other people too. Innocent people who just happen to buy houses through Greg. I thought about my daughters, about the restraining order, about Vanessa's plan to take them away from me. Keep that option open. Nick, keep it open. That evening, I picked up Jamie and Lily from school as usual, trying to maintain the illusion of normalcy while my world continued to disintegrate around us. "Dad, some kids at school are saying Mom's going to have you arrested," Jamie said as we drove home. "Where did they hear that?" "Their parents, probably. Everyone's talking about it." The gossip mill was working overtime, fed by social media posts and neighborhood speculation. I'd become the villain in other people's stories, the angry ex-husband who couldn't accept that his wife had moved on. "Your mother and I are having legal disagreements," I said carefully, "but no one's getting arrested." "Are we going to have to move?" "No." "Are we going to have to live with Mom and Greg?" "Not if I can help it." "Promise?" I looked at her in the rearview mirror, this 13-year-old girl who'd been forced to grow up too fast because of adult failures. "I promise. I'll do everything in my power to keep you here with me." "Even if it means fighting dirty?" The question surprised me with its sophistication. "What do you mean?" "I'm not stupid, Dad. I know Mom's lying about you, and I know you know things about Greg that could hurt them." "Jamie," "I'm just saying, if you need to fight dirty to keep us safe, that's okay with me." That night, after the girls were asleep, I sat in my kitchen and made a list of everyone who'd wronged my family: Vanessa, Greg, David Kellerman, the private investigator, Carla from HR who'd enabled the affair, even some of the neighbors who'd turned our pain into entertainment. For each name, I wrote down what I knew about them, what leverage I might have, what pressure points could be exploited. It was a hit list, basically. Not for violence, I wasn't that far gone, but for the systematic destruction of their reputations, their careers, their comfortable lives. By the time I finished, it was past midnight, and I'd filled 6 pages with plans for revenge. The man I'd been 3 months ago would have been horrified by what I was contemplating. That man had believed in fairness, in taking the high road, in protecting everyone's dignity, even in the midst of divorce. But that man's wife hadn't tried to steal his children with fabricated evidence and false accusations. That man hadn't been served with a restraining order based on complete lies. That man hadn't discovered that his wife's lover was a career criminal who preyed on successful women. I wasn't that man anymore. I was someone harder, someone angrier, someone who understood that sometimes the only way to protect what you love is to destroy what threatens it. And I was about to become very, very good at destruction. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Stop digging, or you'll regret it." I smiled and typed back, "Too late for that." Then I forwarded the message to Sarah Chen with a note. "They're scared. Time to give them something to really worry about." The war was about to begin in earnest, and this time I intended to win. The explosion came on a Wednesday morning in February, delivered not by a sheriff's deputy, but by every major news outlet in the Pacific Northwest. Real estate mogul arrested in multi-million-dollar fraud scheme. I was drinking coffee and helping Lily with her math homework when my phone started buzzing with calls from reporters, neighbors, and people I hadn't spoken to in years. The story was everything Sarah Chen had promised and more. Greg Morrison, née Morimoto, had been arrested at 6 a.m. during a coordinated raid involving the FBI, state police, and local law enforcement. The charges included wire fraud, money laundering, embezzlement, and racketeering. The investigation had been ongoing for 8 months, but the timing of the arrest was no coincidence. Sarah had made sure of that. "Dad, why are there news trucks outside?" Jamie asked, looking out the front window. I joined her and counted 5 vehicles with satellite dishes, plus reporters setting up cameras on our front lawn. "Because Greg got arrested this morning." "For what?" "Stealing money. Lots of money." Jamie's eyes lit up with the kind of satisfaction that comes from seeing justice served. "Does this mean Mom's in trouble too?" Before I could answer, my phone rang. The caller ID showed my lawyer's name. "Jennifer?" "Nick, please tell me you had nothing to do with this." "With what?" "Don't play dumb. The arrest, the timing, The fact that every reporter in the state is calling me for comment about your custody case. I had nothing to do with Greg's criminal activity. But you knew about it. I suspected. I hired an investigator to look into his background. And you didn't think to mention this to me? I'm mentioning it now. Jennifer was quiet for a moment. This changes everything, you know. The custody hearing, the restraining order, all of it. How? Your wife is pregnant with the baby of a man who's facing federal charges. She's been living in his house, potentially benefiting from his criminal proceeds. Her credibility just went from questionable to non-existent. I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Hope. What happens now? Now we go on the offensive. I'm filing an emergency motion to modify the custody arrangement and dissolve the restraining order. I'm also going to request a full investigation into how that restraining order was obtained in the first place. After I hung up, I turned on the news and watched Greg's arrest play out in high definition. There he was, being led away in handcuffs, his perfect hair disheveled, his expensive suit wrinkled. The reporter was explaining how he'd been running a sophisticated Ponzi scheme, stealing from client escrow accounts to fund his lavish lifestyle. But the best part came when they showed footage of Vanessa. She'd been at Greg's house when the FBI arrived, and the cameras caught her stumbling out the front door in a bathrobe, visibly pregnant, looking confused and terrified. The reporter helpfully identified her as the suspect's girlfriend, who is currently involved in a bitter custody dispute with her estranged husband. My phone rang again. This time it was Tessa. "Nick, are you watching this?" Hard to miss. I can't believe it. I mean, I knew he was stealing from me, but federal charges? Money laundering? How are you holding up? I'm fucking ecstatic. I'd never heard Tessa use that kind of language before. The FBI seized everything. His house, his cars, his business accounts, even his golf clubs. And the best part? I'm not liable for any of his debts because I filed for divorce before the arrests. What about his victims? What about them? He stole from them, not me. I'm just another victim in this mess. Her callousness was startling, but I understood it. Greg had destroyed her life, and now she was watching him get exactly what he deserved. Have you heard from Vanessa? She called me an hour ago, crying and begging me to let her stay at my house. What did you tell her? I told her she made her bed. Now she gets to lie in it. Alone. The doorbell rang, and I looked out to see a reporter with a camera crew. I have to go. The vultures are circling. I didn't answer the door, but I did watch through the window as more news trucks arrived. By noon, our quiet suburban street looked like the site of a major disaster, which I supposed it was. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah Chen. Phase 1 complete. Ready for Phase 2? I typed back, what's Phase 2? Destroying what's left of their credibility. Meet me at my office at 3. I arranged for my neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, ironically the same woman who'd been live tweeting our family drama, to watch the girls after school. She was suddenly very eager to help, probably hoping for insider information she could share with her social media followers. Sarah's office was buzzing with activity when I arrived. She had 3 assistants working phones, coordinating with reporters and law enforcement agencies. This is bigger than we expected, she said, leading me to the conference room. The FBI found evidence linking Greg to at least 12 different criminal enterprises. 12? Money laundering for drug dealers was just the tip of the iceberg. He was also running fake charity scams, identity theft operations, and something called a romance fraud where he bilked lonely women out of their life savings. Jesus Christ. It gets better. Remember David Kellerman, the private investigator who was helping build the case against you? Yeah. He's been arrested too. Turns out he wasn't just manufacturing evidence for custody cases, he was also blackmailing his clients after they won. Sarah handed me a thick folder. Everything they were planning to use against you, the fake medical records, the doctored photos, the false witness statements, It's all been seized as evidence in a federal investigation. What does that mean for my case? It means your wife and her boyfriend were engaged in a criminal conspiracy to defraud the family court system. The restraining order will be dismissed. The custody motion will be thrown out, and Vanessa might be facing criminal charges of her own. I sat back in my chair, trying to process the magnitude of what had happened. Is she going to be arrested? Depends on how much she knew and when she knew it. But even if she avoids criminal charges, her reputation is destroyed. No judge is going to award custody to a woman who was living with a career criminal and participating in evidence fabrication. What about the baby? What about it? Greg's going to prison. Vanessa has no money, no job, she got fired this morning, by the way, and nowhere to live. That baby's going to be born into chaos. Sarah looked at me with something like surprise. You're worried about them. I'm worried about an innocent child. Even after everything they did to you? I thought about it for a moment. The baby didn't do anything wrong, and despite everything, Vanessa is still my daughter's mother. You're a better man than most, or a stupider one. Sarah smiled. Maybe both. That evening, I sat my daughters down for what I hoped would be our last serious conversation about the divorce. You've probably heard about Greg's arrest, I began. It's all over school, Jamie said. Kids are asking if we're related to a criminal. What did you tell them? That he's not our family, and he never was. Good answer. What about your mother? What about her? Lily asked. She's going to need help. Greg's in jail, she doesn't have anywhere to live, and she's going to have a baby soon. So? The coldness in Lily's voice was heartbreaking. So she's still your mother, and I'm thinking about letting her stay in the guest room until she gets back on her feet. Both girls stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Dad, she tried to take us away from you, Jamie said. She lied to judges and police and everyone else. Why would you help her? Because it's the right thing to do. Is it? I wasn't sure anymore, but I knew I had to try. She made mistakes, terrible mistakes. But she's still the woman who gave birth to you, who taught you to ride bikes, who sang you to sleep when you were little. That was before she became a different person, Lily said. People don't become different people, sweetheart. They just make different choices. Bad choices. Very bad choices. But that doesn't mean we stop caring about them. Jamie crossed her arms, a gesture that reminded me painfully of her mother. What if we don't want her here? Then she won't stay. This is your home, and you get a vote. They looked at each other, having one of those silent sibling conversations that exclude adults. Can we think about it? Jamie asked finally. Of course. That night, after they'd gone to bed, I called Vanessa's number. It went straight to voicemail, so I left a message. Vanessa, it's Nick. I heard about Greg's arrest. I know you're probably scared and don't know what to do. If you need a place to stay until you figure things out, the guest room is available. No strings attached, no conditions. Just call me back. I hung up and immediately wondered if I was making a huge mistake. My phone rang 20 minutes later. Nick? Vanessa's voice was small and broken. Hey, I got your message. And? Why would you do that? After everything I did to you, why would you help me? Because you're pregnant and homeless and the father of your baby is in federal prison. She started crying then, deep sobs that sounded like they were coming from somewhere primal and desperate. I fucked up so bad, Nick. I fucked up everything. I know. I lost my job. I lost my friends. I lost my family. I lost you. You didn't lose the girls. They're angry and hurt, but they still love you. Do they? Yes. But you're going to have to earn their trust back. I don't know how. Start by telling the truth, all of it. No more lies, no more manipulation, no more games. What if the truth makes everything worse? The truth can't make things worse than they already are. She was quiet for a long moment. Can I really stay in the guest room? If you want to, and if the girls agree. What do I have to do? Nothing. Just be honest. Be the person I married instead of the person you became. I don't know if I remember how to be that person. Then figure it out. She showed up 2 hours later, carrying a single suitcase and looking like she'd aged 10 years in the past month. Her pregnancy was showing now, a small bump that would have made me happy under different circumstances. Jamie and Lily watched from the top of the stairs as I let her in. "Hi, girls," Vanessa said, looking up at them. They didn't respond. "The guest room is down the hall," I said. "There are clean sheets on the bed." "Thank you. We'll talk tomorrow. Tonight, just rest." She nodded and disappeared into the guest room, closing the door quietly behind her. I looked up at my daughters, who were still watching from the stairs. "You okay with this?" "For now," Jamie said. "But if she starts any drama, she's gone." Agreed. As I turned off the lights and headed to bed, I wondered what the hell I was doing. 3 months ago, Vanessa had been planning to destroy my life and steal my children. Now she was sleeping in my guest room, carrying another man's baby, completely dependent on my mercy. The situation was insane, unsustainable, and probably a terrible idea. But it was also the first time in months that I felt like myself again. Not the victim, not the angry ex-husband, not the man plotting revenge, but the person I'd been before everything fell apart. Maybe that was worth the risk. Or maybe I was about to make the biggest mistake of my life. Time would tell. But for tonight, my family was under one roof again, broken and strange and nothing like it used to be, but together. And sometimes, that's the best you can hope for when everything explodes. Sometimes, you just try to save what can be saved and let the rest burn.